Well, hello. I'm Miguel Gillis, and I'm going to show you how I got to this image from this image. I should mention that this all started about a couple of weeks ago when I came across Julia Anna Gospodarou's work on the internet. I think it was on Facebook actually. Where is it? Damn, there it is. This is a webpage, Julia Anna Gospodarou. She's absolutely, awe-inspiring, brilliant. I love her work. She edited a book together with Joel Gingelar, which has been a real inspiration and source of very useful information to me. I should mention that, of course, well, this is fine art. It has nothing to do with my tutorial today. This is way beyond my my capabilities. But what I'm going to show you is roughly how I believe that some of these photographs are done. Of course, this imagery is all very high, high level professional. It's done with neutral density filters, ND filters, with long exposures, anything between 2 to 5 minutes approximately. So it's just so inspiring. It's brilliant. So I remember seeing one of Juliana's images, and 5 years ago I was in Chicago and I took this picture, which is a very boring and very unawe-inspiring picture. Okay, it's nowhere near what we're talking about when we talk about Julia Anna Gospodarou. Of course, there's a blotchy cloud here. It's underexposed, but it resembles some of the images, because there's a building in it, basically nothing else. Okay, so what I did is I duplicated the layer. Actually, there's a second layer here because I tidied up the first one. There was a bit of a building at the top here, which I cloned out and make the layer that we're starting off with look better. Okay, so we're starting off with this original image. What I did then is I duplicated this image and got two versions of it in black and white. One is a low-key version, and from this low-key layer we'll be taking the image of we're taking the light, we're taking the building on the left, and from the high-key version we'll be taking the image on the right, of the building on the right. So how do we do this? I'll remove these two layers so you can see that I'm not cheating. Delete them. And duplicate the original layer. Shall we call this the low key? And duplicate it again and call this the high key. Okay, so we've got four versions of the original image: background, which we want to keep, the original image, the low key, and high key. So you will need Topaz Labs Black and White Effects 2 for the next step, which is of course there are other ways of doing this. I guess you could also do this with just the usual black and white tools of Photoshop, but these filters, Topaz Labs Black and White Effects, they're really great. They're fantastic. You've just got these tons of presets. Don't really like presets usually, but these are pretty decent. And use these presets to alter the image from your original color version into different versions of black and white. Okay, as you'll see when my slow computer returns to life. There you go. You've got all of these presets on the left, which are just fantastic. You can, play around with the actual sliders here, and you can, give it a blue toning, and so you can personalize this very much. But just for for the sake of this tutorial, we're just going to use the high key version, clave alta. There it is. I'm sorry, this is in Spanish. Clave alta, that would be high key 1, high key 2, high key 3, and clave baja, which is a low key. Actually, I quite like that one there for the low key. So let's choose this one, the high key version. We're going to keep the building on the right for this. Okay, which looks good. It's nice and sharp. There's a lot of reflections in there. So hit OK, and this will go back to Photoshop and turn our. So got that wrong. High key. Should have done the high key first. high key. That's our high key version, which we shall place above. And let's do the low key version now. Filter, Topaz Labs, black and white effects 2. We're going to do the low key. I wonder what it's like with a fast computer. Must be brilliant. Need to get mine revamped or replaced. Hello? Is there anybody there? Ah, there you go. We're doing the low key now, yeah? So let's go to low key. Yeah, that's a bit too low, isn't it? Yeah, let's choose this one. Okay. So, back in Photoshop, we now have a high key version for the building on the right and a low key version for everything else. What we're going to do now is we're going to keep the building on the right and delete everything else so that we can see the low key version that's underneath. What I've done is I've already got some preloaded selections here, so let's choose the rest, okay, and I click the delete key, and there you go. We've got the high key version building on the right and everything else looking dark. The next thing I did is I included an overlay layer here. If you click your Alt key and hit this icon here, which is new layer, you can choose the type of new layer that you want. I want an overlay version, 50% fill of grey. And what you can do with this is you can paint highlights or darkness in there. So let's highlight this area here, more so the top of this building up. This building here, let's lower that opacity. Top of this building here, as you can see. So we're going to try and make this look as natural as possible, which is difficult. So there you go. Make it look something like that. Okay, let's remove my original layer. So we've got a bit of light on the top of the darker building. Now, of course, the sky in this version, in this image, is completely wrong. I mean, if I were to have taken this photograph with an ND filter of, I don't know, 13 or 16 stops over a period of 5 minutes, any clouds that would have come across the viewfinder would have turned out to be blurred. And that's not the case here, of course. I took this image lying down, I was sitting around in Chicago. I just lay down on the pavement and took the photograph. So what we're going to do here is we're going to cheat. What I did next is I included a solid fill, solid color. Okay, so let's make a selection of the sky. Okay, select the sky out, make a selection of the sky. I've got that pre-saved in my PSD file. And once we've got the sky selected, we will include a solid color and make it look dark. Okay, like, well, not too dark because that'll look daft. Around there, a mid-tone grey, slightly darker than mid-tone. Okay, voila, like that roughly. So that's the next step. Of course, that does look a bit, cartoony, doesn't it? It's too solid, it's too uniform. Don't worry too much about that, because we'll be vignetting the exterior. And what we have to do now is we have to get some clouds, some blurred clouds in there. Of course, there aren't any in my original picture, so what I've done is I've cheated again. I've painted them in. And how did I do that? Well, I included a new layer, like that, completely new layer, just by clicking on the new layer icon. And with my paintbrush, white color, about this size, not too much paint in there, I paint it over. Of course, we'll need the sky selection, so I don't paint over the building. So let's paint some clouds in. make smaller selections like that. It's the smaller. I get the smaller paintbrush in and do some. Oh, I don't like that one. I go back and forwards across the sky. Oh, oh, that one isn't right. Of course, if you've got what do you call it? One of these. Oh, I can't remember. Tabletas, graphic tablets, whatever you want. Graphic, whatchamacallits. This is much easier. I'm using a mouse right now, which isn't the best of alternatives. But there you go, something like that. When it's looking similar to sort of streaky clouds, then you go up to Filter, Blur, Motion Blur. And you can increase or decrease the intensity of the blur with this slider at the bottom. And the angle of the blur, you can blur it that way. Of course, try and keep the same angle as we were actually painting in the first place. And let's see what that looks like. Well, it's not too bad. You can reduce the opacity until you get the right sort of effect. I think my original one was better, which is that one. Yep. Okay, so painted some clouds in and blurred them. Let's remove that. So the next layer is, as I say, the vignetting. And we click the Alt key, new layer icon, put a new overlay layer in, fill it with 50% grey, click OK. And with a large paintbrush, about there, what we're going to do is we're going to paint a vignette in there. I have to increase that about 40%. So this is a manual process, and what you're doing here is we're painting a vignetting, darkening the exterior of the image, getting the corners dark, making it look a lot more mysterious and unearthly, shall we say. So there you go, paint all around. And one of the techniques that is used by Joel and Julia Anna Gospodarou is, well, it's very similar to this. Well, they use the, I think everybody uses this this technique here of overlay hand painting. You can use gradient tool. Now the gradient tool, when you do select the gradient tool, you'll have different types of gradients that you can fill the image with. Now you wouldn't want to use this, for example, because that would look a bit silly. Well, that's actually not too bad. Let's try and use the black and white gradient. Well, it's not black and white, it's black to transparent. And as you can see, you paint and you click on the outside of the image, and you start drawing the lines towards the exterior into, if you do short lines in the middle, that's what's going to happen. So you have to click from the outside and then draw your lines inwards, and that will give you this sort of, so if you do it the other way around, it's going to blacken everything. That's just not right. Okay, so with a combination of overlay and gradient, paintbrush and gradient, you try and end up with something that looks like that, I'd say. I think I overdid it in the example there. Okay, so we've vignetted, we've darkened the outside. The next thing I did was highlight the vertical columns here to give a greater sense of perspective there. Now that's just as easy as practically selecting with the Polygon Selection tool. You've got lasso and you've got quite a few in there. Use the polygonal version, and you just zoom in and you click from here and you take it up to there like this, for example, and you go to there like that. Of course you'd normally zoom in and try and make this as sophisticated and decent and tight and adjusted as you can. And once you've got your selection in, you choose for example curves, and that would allow you to increase or decrease. looks strange when you increase your contrast or the luminosity of that area that you've selected. So you repeat this for each of the different areas. Actually, I've just seen a fourth selection that I hadn't selected in my original image, which I'm going to darken, which is the reflection of the building in the front, which goes something like that. The whole of that area there could actually be darkened a little to make it look more like a reflection, like that, for example. See what I mean? So you would, select different areas of your image to give those areas different levels of luminosity. And then after that, we would add an additional overlay layer, which is, as I say, click your Alt key, new layer, overlay, 50% fill. And in this case, what we've done is we've not only darkened, but we've also lightened some of the areas of the photograph. Clicking here, for example, we've lightened this building at the top, the one at the bottom here as well. Darkened a bit more here. Now, when you're darkening the image, you may notice that the grey gradients start to band. You get some banding in there. If you do get any banding, which banding is roughly, shall we say, when the gradient goes from dark to light, and it doesn't go in a smooth way. You've got different bands in that gradient. What you can use to diminish that effect, so that it's not as exaggerated, it just doesn't look right, is select the area that's banded and add some noise. Okay, noise, add noise, and that would remove the banding in the sky. I've seen that happen. It's not so exaggerated in this image, but it can happen. You can use noise to remove banding. Okay, so okay, we're getting there. And in the end, to finalize, if you can see the final image, which is this one here, what I've done to get this is select all of the image. Okay, select all, edit, copy merged. It's taking its time. Edit, paste. So what we've done there is we've copied all of the image, merged them into one layer, which is the layer at the top. And the last step is to sharpen, unsharp mask, and take it all the way up to the top. So make that really sharp, a lot of contrast in there. Click OK. And there you are. I think we've got it. There it is. Looking good. It's not Julia Anna Gospodarou level, but it's the first step. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks very much. Bye.